Preseason is over for the Pelicans, and it feels like there's some serious concerns going into the regular season. I'll tell you what those are, but also why they might not matter at all. It's the Wednesday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans at NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all day after the Pelicans lose to the Houston Rockets 118-98, the final preseason game. There was some good, there was some bad. There are some big concerns that might not matter at all. I'll explain what I mean in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode is going to be important for expectations and for opening night, and it'll make sense as the show goes on. So definitely listen to this one. Recommend the show to your friends as well. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So let's get into the 118-98 loss to the Houston Rockets. Good news, Brandon Ingram played, and he scored well. Zion Williamson didn't play. Daniel Theis started, and they lost this game, and at times had flashes of some good performances from players, but at times also struggled to feel like they're greater than the sum of their parts. That things looked clunky out there. And honestly, it feels like we're leaving preseason with more questions than answers. There has been some, plenty of flashes of good play. Zion overall has looked good. Herb Jones is still Herb Jones. We'll get into Jordan Hawkins and Yves Missi in the third segment, but I want to go with Brandon Ingram in this one. Look, overall, for one game in preseason, he looked good. He scored well, 18 points in this one. He took a couple of threes, finished with 18 points, 7 of 13 shooting, which is a good number, 2 of 3 from deep. We need to see that. 2 of 2 from the line, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, just 1 turnover. He had a plus-minus of 0. Hold that thought on that here. The scoring was good. But was this the dominant Brandon Ingram that people had been talking about in training camp? I mean, 18 points on 13 shots is very, very good efficiency, but he did also feel like he left you wanting more. One of the things we've looked at and I've talked a lot about is winning your minutes. The Pelican starters have not done that. The Pelican starters did not do that in this one here. Overall, if the starters aren't going to be an elite unit, this team will struggle this year. I don't think they have the bench to kind of make up for it like they did last season. So a plus-minus of 0, which admittedly is best out of all of the starters there, but Brandon Ingram's comps aren't Daniel Theis. They're not going to be Herb Jones either when it comes to making an impact out there on the court. So, yeah, he was the best out of the starters, but I don't think that's what it really says here, right? Good, he's better than Daniel Theis. He should be better than Theis. You know, the big thing is being impactful. And the Pelicans were down 14 at halftime. Now, that's not all on Brandon Ingram. And the scoring was good. I mean that. They need him to do that. But was it that impactful style of play? Maybe it's just one game back, first game back, but he's been practicing all training camp. You know, they can say all they want about working back from injury all the way back in April, before the playoffs. That's not really going to hold much weight with me right here. This was a game where you want to see him go out and dominate, and the scoring's good. He's going to need to do that. But here's some of the things, right? When you look at the Pelicans overall in preseason, it's been clunky. There's a lot of mid-range shot attempts, and you saw it in this game. You can go to nba.com/stats, and I'll tweet this out after I do the show. Look at the 2 shot profiles from the Pelicans and the Houston Rockets, the 2 shot charts. It's so many mid-range jumpers for the Pelicans that they bricked all night long. Shots that are jumpers in the paint but not in the restricted area still aren't great shots. You want in the restricted area or beyond the three-point line. Even that like kind of free throw line jumper isn't a great shot. Houston didn't, and Houston won the game. Now, we don't need to look at the wins and losses in preseason too much because, frankly, when you're playing backups and guys in the third and the fourth quarters here, it doesn't truly matter, and there's not a real good way to get a read on it. So we're not going to judge this team based off of their, the win-loss thing here. But look at Brandon Ingram's shot chart. The three-point attempts were really good, going 2 of 3 from there. Should have been more, though. It's 20 minutes of action, so say double it here, and that's like 6 attempts. It's actually pretty good for him. But just 1 shot in the restricted area. When you look at the shots that weren't from 3, weren't in the restricted area, he took 9 of them, and he went 4 for 9. That's not good efficiency. He started it by taking those threes, but where are the rim attempts? Getting to the basket, attacking the basket. That's what we've heard from him in preseason or in training camp. We didn't see that out there on the court, and that added to some of the clunkiness here. Now, it might end up being okay, and we're going to give him some grace. It's 1 game working his way back here, but he didn't alter as much as we would like. So while, yes, he made his shots, and that's good, there's a reason the offense looked clunky, and part of it is to do with spacing, and part of that's on the lineups that they're running out there. Daniel Theis is not helping you whatsoever when it comes to it. So Ingram had a nice scoring night, but is that going to help the team win? We don't have an answer to that question right now. We have some idea of it for his career. It can help you win enough games. Is he going to be the guy that leads you to a playoff series win? No. When you look at him, is he a better 2-3 on a good team? And it's probably more likely that. Hence why the impact in this one wasn't as great as we would like it to be. But he's out there playing. And we're going to end up leaving preseason with more questions than answers. If he plays like he did in this game, the same shot profile, he and Zion won't work. There's going to be too much overlap. And it's part of the reason why you've seen this team really struggle. And, it's 1 game with Ingram. It's 2 games with Zion. Neither played with each other. So again, more questions than answers when it comes to this sort of thing. But you've seen so much, you go, I go, you go, I go, because these guys aren't changing their games enough to really complement one another. In this one, it was, Murray who I didn't think played particularly well. Getting in the restricted area just twice and taking 3 threes. They need to cut these mid-range jump shots out because Murray missed all of the other shots. He took 1, 2, 3, 4 that were outside of the restricted area, inside from the 3-point line, and missed them all. They've got to work to get better shots. But when guys want to just go to their mid-range spots, it kills spacing. It puts a defender that can easily help at the rim and deter shots at the rim. That's why those mid-rangers aren't great and why it also hurts them, because it's just not as high of a percentage when it comes to points per shot attempt and things like that. And that's a big part of why this team lost. Things have looked clunky in preseason, and I'm the optimistic guy here. But I haven't loved what I've seen from this team. Some nice individual performances, sure, but do I think it's going to be conducive to lead to them winning games? Right now, I'm not so sure. I still think they're going to be good. I still think they're going to win a bunch of games. But are they going to be an elite team like we want them to be? Like we're hoping they can? Probably not based on how it looks as of now. Does that mean they need to change, a starting center, what have you? We'll talk a little bit about that in the third segment here. One of the things, though, I want to focus on here when it comes to does this actually matter, and we'll get to more of that in the next segment here. Look at this game in points in the paint. It was 36-60 that the Pelicans were outscored in the paint. So part of that is no Zion. But the other part is not missing a center. Not missing a center. A lot of people, you don't have points in the paint because you don't have an elite starting center. It's not that. It's guys need to attack. They need to get into the paint. They need to get into the restricted area and try and do that. You didn't see that aggression from Ingram in this game. You didn't see that aggression from DeJounte Murray in this game. And maybe part of that's due to circumstances with the lineups. But the reason they were outscored 36-60 in points in the paint was they didn't try and go score at the rim. They settled for mid-range jumpers, and they missed them, and this team lost. It's preseason. The result doesn't matter. But the process here is mildly concerning. But here's also the crazy thing about this. It might not matter. It might not matter at all. So while there are concerns on the surface, yes, I'm going to tell you why it might not matter at all coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NBA fans, Pelicans fans, NFL fans, Saints fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can get in on the action right now for opening night. The line is actually moved to -7.5 for the Pelicans right now. They're going to be big favorites here. If you have big concerns, bet against them. You feel they'll get this stuff straightened out, bet with them here. -7.5 is what I'm feeling. I think they're going to run away with it on opening night. You can do that right now and then get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And all you have to do, visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. Now for your second listen, Locked On Saints. Is it fire Dennis Allen time? Maybe, probably not going to happen, though. What did Mickey Loomis say about him? Ross Jackson over at the Locked On Saints podcast, going to make sense of everything black and gold. Go make them your second listen. Locked On Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we just went over the concerns in preseason. Very real concerns, I think, when you look at them and how clunky they've looked, that your turn, my turn on offense and everything. But does this actually matter? Did any of the 3 games that we just watched actually matter at all? And I don't have an answer for you right now. And you might be like, no, they look bad. So here's the thing. Does any of this actually matter if that isn't the starting lineup they're going to use on opening night? If we're not really seeing who they're playing and who they're going to be, should we value this whatsoever? And truthfully, I don't have the answer for you right now. Is this a small ball team? Because we haven't seen small ball a ton. We haven't seen a small ball unit that has Zion and Ingram out there. So great, we had 2 games of Zion, but if you don't get it with Brandon Ingram, is it, it's like, does it matter? And I don't know right now. That clunkiness that we've seen might not matter. I think a big part of it is them starting Daniel Theis. He just doesn't add much, and you play 4-on-5 offensively at times. If guys aren't going to just change their shot profile, or Brandon Ingram was just kind of working back into a rhythm here and just decided to kind of fall into some of the shot attempts that he feels comfortable with without trying to kind of like push himself to adapt. And that can be okay for a game. As long as you're doing it on opening night, does it matter? I don't know. If they're going to start Herb at the 5, okay, that's great. But he wasn't defending 5s in this game a ton. And we talked about it in yesterday's show. The whole approach to preseason by the Pelicans has really left me scratching my head going, what are y'all doing? Now, here's the thing with that. And we talked about this yesterday. There's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that none of us get to see. Even people with access like me don't get to see this all the time. I don't get to see the full practices. So one of the things I said in that previous segment here is we have more questions than answers, at least to us internally. And I don't know if this is true or not. Internally, the Pelicans might look at this and go, yeah, we got the answers. We're going to go small ball, so who cares? You saw them make a change with Misi in the second half, and they looked significantly better. Is it just something as simple as that? All of these we can kind of speculate on, but maybe behind the scenes, Willie Green's got a master plan, and for whatever reason, they're just not rolling it out in preseason. That's okay. But the real true test is going to come on opening night. A week from today is when it's going to matter. Are they going to be ready? I hope so. But I can't guarantee that right now. This preseason has left me a little bit concerned if it's not like obvious by now when it comes to that. So it remains to be seen what version of the Pelicans we're going to get. There's enough talent here, and we've seen the talent in preseason. Ingram can score. Zion is Zion. Murray, we know, will do a good job here. Herb Jones is Herb Jones. Jose Alvarado continues to be impactful. Trey Murphy will get healthy. CJ was making his threes, taking some really good shots too. I liked all of that. And if they get aggressive and attack the paint and have the right lineups that allow guys to do that, well, then they're going to score and we don't need to worry about points in the paint. And the big thing is just going to come down to rebounding. And I think we've kind of seen that they can get by without that so far. But if you run this starting lineup out there, if Daniel Theis is your opening night starter, you're going to be in some trouble. Maybe Yves Missi gets the start. It's very clear that it goes Theis, then Missi in some order there, with Jeremiah Robinson-Earl being kind of like a third person on that, and then Carlo not even getting minutes in this. I'm assuming he's going to spend a lot of time in Birmingham this year, kind of based off of all of it. So this clunkiness that we've seen might matter, might not. It's not a great position to be in. Now, if they come out on opening night and they prove us wrong, great. If you go off and get off to a hot start, that's good. These games early in the season are going to matter. The West is a gauntlet this year. Getting Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson when they played so few games together in their careers here in New Orleans, I don't know. Seems like a good idea to me. But maybe the Pelicans feel they don't need that based on what they've seen in training camp, in practices. That's okay too. It is very hard to judge a team just off of preseason. And that's why I'm here saying I don't have the answer for you. I'm not going to come in and make a declarative statement, the hot take here, be like, this team's going to say. We don't know actually yet. There's signs we could point to that's like, this isn't going to work. And if they run that starting lineup out there with Daniel Theis, let's say, and it doesn't work, we're not going to be surprised by that. And they probably shouldn't have done it in the first place. Maybe they go small ball. Maybe it works. And maybe you didn't need to try it in preseason. Feels like you should. But it's not about what we think or what we feel. It's about what this team knows. And look, they have more data points. They have more eyes on things than I do here. Now, they could also just be making poor decisions. But I wouldn't say I'm more qualified than them when it comes to this sort of thing. So when it comes to the team on opening night, a lot of this is going to be remains to be seen. I don't love that feeling of uncertainty, of not knowing what to expect. That can be fun in some cases. But not right now. That's not fun to me. I don't want to go in there and be like, well, this could be real great or it could be real bad. I'd rather know it's really good. And I'd rather know if it's really bad so that you can adjust, make changes so you do something that won't be the really bad thing. But we don't have those answers right now. We're walking away from preseason with far more questions than answers. Now, those questions might not matter. I don't know. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. This has been a strange preseason, I think, for the New Orleans Pelicans here, and just kind of a strange offseason already. But you can see flashes of potential. You see it with the players. There's talent here. The national media narrative around New Orleans has been, does it all fit? Will it all work together? That's kind of being justified right now based on what we've seen in preseason. But if they don't do what they've done in preseason, then none of that matters, and we get a fresh look at them, and maybe they prove everybody wrong. We'll find out on opening night, a week away right now, which is going to be really exciting, really fun. I can't wait for real Pelicans basketball. By the way, it was nice to get the game on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network here, where we could hear Joel Myers, Antonio Daniels, Andrew Lopez in mid-season form as the sideline reporter right there, looking good. It's great. Nice to see the broadcast quality look good and everything from what I saw. Hopefully it was for you as well. So let's get into some bright spots here. Two of the young guys on the team, Yves Missi, Jordan Hawkins, kind of showing out. Things they need to clean up, we'll look at those, but this gives me a lot of optimism for both of their games. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Game Time. This is my go-to ticketing app for all of the features that Game Time has. They just make it really easy and simple and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. And Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can also get the panoramic view from the seat before you buy. So if you're going fly to a venue you've never been to before, great. You can know the view from your seats. You're going to get the exact tickets that you want. And then you can toggle all-in pricing. So the total price is shown up front. No surprise fees at checkout. It goes beyond just sporting events, live concerts, theater, whatever it is you're looking for. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with that new Game Time Picks feature. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this team. So please subscribe. Now, for your second listen, it's up on the Locked On Pelicans feed, but it's also on Locked On NBA as well. So for your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA season previews on Locked On NBA. From East and West contenders to potential tanking teams, a 6-episode series with everything you need to know about the NBA season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We had like a scheduling snafu for the one on the Pelicans supposed to be last week. A couple guys couldn't do it, had to reschedule, and then I couldn't do it. So I chimed in with a couple of quick videos in that. So when you don't see me in there right away, trust me, I'm going to be making an appearance and everything on there. So don't worry about that. We'll get the Pelicans represented out there. So let's wrap up talking about a couple of things we saw in preseason from some standout performers here. And I want to start with Jordan Hawkins. 6 of 13 from the field for 20 points in this one. He's gotten to the line a lot in preseason, and I've loved that from him. Show that you're more than just a shooter, and I definitely think that Jordan Hawkins has done that. Still doesn't give you the defense, gives you decent rebounding, but as a shooter and as a scorer, he's definitely there. He didn't get to the restricted area, though, but he was aggressive enough, got fouled, went to the line that way, including also on jumpers as well. You want to continue to see that aggressiveness from him. I'd rather him cut out some of those mid-range jumpers. He's hitting them, that's good, but he also went 3 of 6 from there, and I don't love that. Sorry, he went 3 of 7, so it was under 50% when he shot 50% from 3. Just take more threes. It's really as simple as that. But the confidence that he has, the confidence that the coaching staff has in him too, I think is a really important thing, and I'm excited to see him kind of be in this rotation, and he has earned a spot that is going to be hard to kind of bump him out of, I think, right now. I'd like to see him, Trey, Zion on there, him with CJ, Trey, and Zion too, and you could put Herb out there, I think would be a lot of fun, or Devontae Green, and I think that could be a really effective lineup. But his scoring, his shooting, the fact that he's in the scouting report for opponents too, I also think is a really great thing. This is a guy that's going to have a pretty significant role. Cut out some of those bad shots, make your shot profile a little bit more efficient. He's going to be in a good spot. You see it, the aggressiveness of trying to attack the basket, getting fouled, getting to the line, and then making his free throws. You want to skyrocket your efficiency. Truthfully, it is by getting to the free throw line and hitting threes, but mainly getting to the free throw line. He did that in this game. He's done that a lot. That's something that I feel pretty confident about him being able to do in the regular season. That's someone who needed to be more than just a shooter. Well, if you get to the line, that counts as being more than just a shooter. That's something that synergizes well with other guys on this team, particularly like Zion Williamson. That's why we want Ingram to attack. He'll get fouled. He'll go to the line more. Same thing for CJ a little bit too, though CJ should just mainly shoot. Same for DeJounte Murray. He was at times aggressive, got to the line 6 times in this one. That's what we want to see from guys like that. Yves Missi also looked pretty good and active, and I was encouraged by what we saw from him in this game. Missi coming off the bench with 9 points on 4 of 5 shooting. That's good because they were all in the restricted area. 3 rebounds, 2 assists from Misi. He also had a block, and that sequence was great. Blocked a shot from behind, immediately started running down in transition where Brandon Ingram, who is a good and willing passer, found him for the alley-oop, an easy score right there, turning defense into transition opportunities and then being part of those transition opportunities. That was great. I liked the decision to start him with the starters in the second half and see if they could just make things look a little bit better. And truthfully, they did. The Pelicans managed to chip into that deficit right away, winning that quarter by 7, cutting the deficit in half at that point before really just it went all away in the fourth quarter, and we don't care because no one of importance was playing. So Misi, maybe, if you're insistent on starting a center, needs to be the guy. One thing you saw that he did offensively was get behind the defense, become a lob threat. I'd rather three-point shooting spacing, but vertical spacing's a thing, even if it's not as spacey-ish. I've tried to do something there and it didn't work. Even if it's not the same kind of spacing as three-point shooting. Be a threat on offense. That's what you need. And Misi definitely did that. The downside is the fouls. He had 5 in this game. I've told you from the moment they drafted him, my big concern with him was cut down on the fouls. And he's going to do that. It's just he's a rookie. It's how it goes. He's got a lot to learn, but you can see he's picking up the game really quickly. He's definitely listening to the coaches for the way he's moving offensively. He has a very good feel for the game. This type of performance from him is the type of thing that made me feel much better about that pick. Didn't love it in the moment, but seeing him kind of the way he moves, some of the shot blocking ability against the Miami Heat, I thought was a really good performance. Look, he looks like a rookie out there at times, but looks like a rookie with a lot of potential. And I think that is better than where we were, a couple of weeks ago when it comes to him. Also thought Elfrid Payton has looked pretty good in preseason for the New Orleans Pelicans. Maybe he can latch on with that final roster spot here. The assists have been good. He's been running the offense well. It's fun to have the local guy in a good story on the team too. Remains to be seen what they end up doing from him. You'll start to see the cut downs in the next day or so. This week gets pretty busy when it comes to that, early next week too. Don't forget, we also have a Trey Murphy extension, looming within the next week as well. We'll see what they do with Elfrid Payton, but he's been a good story and has played well in preseason. And sometimes that's the most important thing. And it might really come down to how they feel about Jose Alvarado, but they rewarded Jose with a new contract. So I don't really see Payton bumping him out of that spot in that rotation. And frankly, they need another big for that final roster spot rather, I think, than another guard. But look, he's played well. It's a cool story. So let me know what you've thought about the 3 preseason games for the Pelicans. Look good, not good? Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. So tomorrow, we're going to look at some trade targets when it comes to bigs. I have one from Charlotte that I think could be a good option for the Pelicans, but there's some limitations there. We'll get you set for the regular season here on the Locked On Pelicans podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and I'll be back with you all tomorrow.